Three prime ministers in 2 months. What is going on in the United Kingdom? Rishi Sunak has taken the reins of a country bogged down in political and economic turmoil, with energy prices set to increase 80% in October and consumer prices up over 10% in September from a year earlier. How serious are the woes that led to the sudden shift in power? Can the new leader unite the Conservative Party and the country to end the economic crisis? And what will be his solution to the UK's political and economic problems? I'm pleased to be joined here in the studio by Ina Tangen, Senior Fellow of the Taihe Institute think tank, and Zhang Gong, Professor of Economics at the University of International Business and Economy. Gentlemen, welcome to the studio.
Thank you very much.
Yes, it's been a long time.
It's been a long time.
So Rishi Sunak won the race to be the Prime Minister this time without vote, as he was the only candidate with over 100 MP support. He lost the race last time against Liz Truss. That was only, 6 weeks ago.
Yes. How time flies.
How time flies. What changed, though?
What changed was Liz Truss. I mean, he's getting credit for the fact that he said that her economic package that she actually put forward with her Chancellor of the Exchequer was, fairy tale economics. And it turned out to be that way. I mean, her first move was, other than redecorating 10 Downing Street, which I think
at the right moment.
At the right moment, yes, just like her book, which is coming out in 6 weeks. She put it in. Immediately, the British pound fell to the lowest level it has ever been in history. And in addition to that, the bond market just collapsed. They were admonished by the U.S., by the IMF, the World Bank. Everyone said, "What on earth are you thinking?" And it was this idea that at a time when people are suffering, living paycheck to paycheck, which is shrinking due to inflation, her big thing was, let's cut the taxes for rich and corporations. It just was the absolutely wrong note. But the issue, though, is that the Conservatives knew what she was proposing, and they voted for her in over Rishi Sunak. Now they're going back. They're saying, okay, well, we'll have Rishi. I mean, he's okay. But it's an interesting juxtaposition. The person they rejected is now the person that they're looking to save their party. Now, remember, you said earlier that there was no party vote on this, but the fact is the people have not voted on the last two.
We'll touch on that in just a moment, but you touched on a very important point. I mean, they gave Liz Truss the chance to try out this thing, which I don't know, anybody with economic training or background would probably be able to foresee what it might trigger. I mean, there is nobody in the UK government, in the UK, academia or, circles who had no idea what was coming. I mean, how come her plan could fail so miserably? And the more important question, has the lesson been learned?
Well, it was an unorthodox plan. Normally in a time like this, you have to choose between economic development and fighting inflation. I mean, these goals are not so much compatible. You can't have the best of both worlds at the same time. Now, she is choosing to emphasize on the economic side, while at the same time, essentially, not just ignoring my view, but also it's likely to exacerbate the inflationary pressure. And that's just going to be disastrous for a lot of people, right? Because the inflation is so high right now, over 10% in UK at this point. And if this plan is implemented, it's going to further increase inflation. And usually the people who are living based on paychecks are most likely, are definitely going to suffer from inflation like this. So this is politically unacceptable.
Yeah, but did people not know it? I mean, did the decision makers not know the potential consequences of such a plan?
I think it's intriguing that they would still vote for her, knowing that she has a plan like this. I think some of the people on the conservative side probably see this as maybe as a chance to go through, and then they're seeing massive resistance, and you're probably seeing this exchange in the parliament, and like this is gone, these people are gone as well. Why is she still there, right? So it was a hilarious thing, and eventually I think the political pressure is so much that even though she claims to be a fighter, not a quitter, she quits eventually.
Well, yeah, she quitted eventually, and the Tory party ditched her, it is very fair to say. But now is Sunak fit for purpose?
No. And I don't mean that as an indictment of his character. He's a typical elite. His wife is one of the richest people in Britain, although she doesn't pay taxes, kind of an issue when you were previously Chancellor of the Exchequer, which means you were in charge of collecting taxes. Nothing has changed, and nothing in Britain has changed. So, I mean, the Conservative Party is still the party of business. They want to figure out some sort of growth strategy. But at a time when there's inflation, they're not equipped to go out and really address the needs of the ordinary people who are out there who are suffering. And a lot of these people were the ones who voted for them. You've already had various racist things against him. I mean, remember, this was the party that said Brexit. All right, and why did they do that? Many in Britain felt that their country was being overwhelmed by those people. Of course, those people being people who weren't white. And now they have a prime minister who, coincidentally, is not white. So what happened 7 years ago has now resulted in perhaps a very ironic twist that they have somebody who doesn't represent their color.
Yeah, nevertheless, Sunak looked very determined, although he was not flamboyant when he was giving that statement after being put in that place. He said the country faces a profound economic crisis. So, Professor John, from an economic point of view, still, what could be his solutions? Is he giving out the right signal? And they're not repeating the same mistakes that Liz Truss was making.
Well, I think that currently he doesn't even have the luxury to talk about economic growth. And right now it's all fighting inflation. And to fight inflation, you have to raise interest rate, you have to have fiscal tightening. So these other things are all anti-growth. So I think in the short run, the British economy is not going to go anywhere. And I think aside from the inflation issue, there's also in my view, a structural problem with this very profoundly longer time of economic stagnation for the United Kingdom. It claims to be a global Britain, but it's actually not, right? I mean, it's becoming a fringe in European continent, vis-a-vis European continent. It's, all the benefits of social with the European Union is all gone now. So I think it's very difficult for him right now, and I don't see how he can get out of this hole anytime soon, anytime easier.
I'm going to disagree with John a little bit on this. It's two kinds of inflation. There's a supply side inflation, which is what is driving this. We're talking about energy and food
Prices
right now.
going up.
Prices going up. You
Right.
cannot, I don't care how much fiscal austerity and how many times you raise interest rates, it's going to have a very marginal effect. I still have to eat, I still need to heat my house, and I still need to run my businesses. And then you have the demand side. Yes, fiscal policy can affect very much demand side. But at this juncture, they have to start dealing with the supply side issues and the real pain and misery of their people. If I can't heat my home, I don't have food for my children, I can't pay my mortgage, this is real pain. And unfortunately, the Conservatives are not up to that. They are always the things, well, it's tough, let the market do it, some have to fail. But right now, it's the majority of people who are looking at failure.
And the market is not being very friendly in terms of energy prices.
Yeah.
And
See. Okay. So no, I totally agree. Actually, I actually wrote an article published.
Oh yes.
South
Now
China
we
Morning
get-
Post. Yeah. So this is definitely a supply side induced inflation. There's no doubt about it. But the problem to fight inflation is actually very limited. Typically, just raise interest rates, even though it's trying to slow down both demand and supply. Okay, the solution is not so much of an economic policy. It should be a political solution, right? I mean, the fundamental cause of the food and energy prices is because of this war in Ukraine. And economic policy cannot resolve this problem. So I think, looking forward, I think as long as this war is still going on, as long as Ukraine and Russia remains to be the major suppliers of food, grain, and energy as well for Russia, there's no hope.
What can Rishi do then?
Nothing. He can't change it unless.
And how much time does he have?
He has no time and no options.
So, are we going to see a continuation of the shuffle? The shifting.
It was a plate full of platitudes. I mean, look at it. Was there one instance where he put forward a policy that's going to change anything?
Right.
I agree with John.
But what can he do then?
Well,
this is the question.
You have to think outside the box. He has to stop saying that I'm going to fight Russia and support Ukraine, fight China, fight the EU. He has to bring this all to a head. It was a mistake to do Brexit in the first place. So he cannot undo in 10 minutes what was coming for the last 7 years. All right. So they have big problems with the EU. They have to settle that. They have things. He should be saying, look, for the sake of Britain, interest and the people that I represent, we need to start talking about peace in Ukraine. We need to settle things.
Does he have the political leeway to do that?
No, that's what I'm saying.
Problem.
The Conservatives, this would be a 180-degree turn for the Conservatives. It would be very difficult for him politically to sell that to even his own party.
But I mean, external problems, of course, everybody faces external problems. Some country cope better, some country cope not so well. I mean, are we looking at just policy or competence issues, or are we looking at some deeper issues? I mean, the constant, okay, Tory parties say, okay, today we give you a chance. Oh, you're not good enough, then we ditch you, we choose another one. Is that going, and they're divided over a lot of issues,
Right.
Brexit, economic management, immigration, and so on and so forth. So is there a deeper problem, or it's just on a superficial level?
I think it is a deeper problem with the British economy. And I think there's some talks already about Britain's political system becoming like the Italians, right? I mean,
Brittany, yes.
Okay, yeah, that's right. So, frequent changes of power, it's probably likely in UK. I would still give him the benefit of the doubt. I mean, if you look at what he's talking about, he doesn't really put out any concrete stuff, any concrete policies,
but right now you're an emergency. Concrete is good.
So he is he appears to be talking nicely, and we'll just give him the benefit of the doubt and see if he can indeed, implement something, of a concrete nature, be effective in nature.
Of course, a daunting task. But what about China? What to expect for China? Your guess, Aina.
Okay, so he's an elite.
Briefly, please.
Yeah. He's an elite. He's said in the past that he sees China as the big threat to Great Britain. But like a lot of politicians, once he's dealing with the realities and the fact that they need an economic boost, I think that he will moderate his tone.
John?
I think his talk has been, fairly anti-China for the past. But typically, a politician like this, usually changes tone after he takes power. But I do worry that, from his ethnic background, just being very honest about this, I think a lot of Indian people, Indian diaspora that I've come across, they tend to be a little bit anti-China, to be honest. And I don't know how much of that plays a role in his thinking. So we'll have to wait and see if that's the case.
Okay, let's give him the benefit of the doubt, as you said. Many thanks to Professor John Gong and Aina Tangen, as always. And we'll take a short break, and when we come back, my talk with the Mozambican ambassador to China. She tells me what she makes of the recently concluded 20th National Congress of the Communist Party of China. Stay with us.